Howdy folks, it's Adriel the Hunting Gear Guy. There's a Glock 48 with a Streamlight on there. The Glock 48, it comes in a two-tone where it's got just the stainless top, where it's got like a blacked out nitride. It also comes with a rail or no rail in the case of this one. The primary, I guess, claim to fame for the Glock 48 is that it's a slim grip, but a little bit taller of a grip than some of the other compacts and a little bit longer of a slide than some of the other compacts as well. So this is a smaller magazine on these things. They take 10 rounds for the just regular magazine. You saw that that magazine's empty, and you can see that this chamber is empty as well. So we're clear to take a closer look at this thing. And just starting with those magazines, they are quite a bit smaller than just a standard Glock 17 magazine, both in height and in thickness, in girth. You can see the proof that it's Canadian there. So you can't use your Glock 17 mags in your Glock 48. Won't fit, but these other ones will. Now these are oddly expensive right now in Canada. Maybe they're regular priced in the US, but this is just the standard Glock 48 mag, and they're just a little bit pricey here. You can see there, just a little bit of a plastic base plate on there. The grip itself has some decent checkering on it. Checkering? Stippling? It's got some little like squares on it. Not quite as aggressive as some of the other ones out there, like the P10. This is CZ P10 has some aggressive ass stippling on it. You grip that thing and your hands will like have the grid pattern after shooting a mag with it. But this guy's not bad at all. Primarily, these Glock 48s are made for concealed carry in the US. Now, they're popular here in Canada because this is like one of the smaller guns you can legally get here. We have a barrel length restriction. We have a magazine capacity restriction as well. So this one meets the barrel length restriction without having to have like a chode barrel like sticking out the end. And it doesn't need any pin in the magazine, which is kind of nice. And it just feels kind of nice to not be wasting like so much space in the magazine with air, and instead you get to fill it up with bullets. So it's a bit of a smaller grip. Again, in the US, this would be great for like concealed carry or even like open carry if you just want something a little bit smaller. Here in Canada, NA. Now my Glock is mostly factory with just a couple of caveats to that. One, I've got an extended mag release here from JF Gunworks. They're a gun parts manufacturer here in Canada. And of course, yeah, that flashlight on there, that Streamlight TLR6 on there is also not factory. But it doesn't fit nicely with the lines on this gun. So this one doesn't have a frame on it. If you have a rail. If you have a Glock 48 with the rail on it, putting a light on it is a lot easier. You got lots of options. No rail, well, this thing actually clamps in on the trigger guard. I have a video on it. I'll put a card up here or something like that. But I like the light. The extended mag release, I wouldn't run if I was in the States and I was running concealed because it's just a little bit extra stuff to grab onto. I did not opt for the extended slide lock because I find especially with Glocks, if I put my hands over top, you see that slide release right there? If I put my hand too tight on it, sometimes I can ride that slide release, and if it's the extended one and it bumps out a little bit, I fire that last round and it ends up here, empty mag. I fire that last round and the slide goes forward because I was riding on that slide release. I don't want to have to teach myself to like move that thumb out, so I just like the flush mounted slide releases. I'm a big fan of. We've got just standard Glock sights, the U, the dot. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. If I end up shooting this thing a lot, maybe I'll replace it with some Dawson sights or something like that. Fiber front, black rear, that's my jam. Why don't we disassemble this Glock 48? So first things first, to remove your magazine first, lock your slide to the rear. Make sure that there's no round in the chamber, nothing in the magazine. This gun's clear. If you don't do those steps and you strike it out, you could put a round into your leg. So what I'm doing is pinching on both sides with these fingers. I pull this slide back a little bit, pull down on that disassembly lever. Then I press the trigger and remove the slide. In terms of the lower, all you really need to do is just brush off any hard deposits on there. There are none. If you're just shooting like factory ammo, this thing's pretty clean. There's our recoil spring there. I can just remove it. It's just a little guy. Move it out of the way, and then to take the barrel out, I'm just going to push from the bottom, pull it out there. Around the barrel, maybe I'll get like the feed ramp and that kind of thing. Just give it a quick brush, give it a quick hit with a rag. And now I can see that that feed ramp there is nice and clean. That's my primary motivation for cleaning this thing out. Clean the barrel if you need to. You probably don't, unless you fired like thousands of rounds through it. Right in here, I can see a couple little flecks of brass and that kind of thing, so I'm just going to brush them off. On the face right here, that's where there's going to be a lot of damage from carbon and that kind of thing. Damage, just carbon buildup. So give that a quick brush up, and you should be able to just wipe it clean with your rag after using your brush. I have just a tiny little bit of ballistol on that brush just to help with cleaning and lubricating. That's not because I want to get this super nice and oily. I just want to get it clean and looking pretty spotless there. I'm just going to get the front a little bit. Good to go. There's a couple places I'm just going to hit with a little bit of synthetic grease here. And a little bit, not a lot, because less is more. You put too much grease in here and it'll like collect carbon and dirt and stuff like that. I'm going to just put a little bit on the plunger right there because that does affect my trigger pull. I'm going to put a little bit, basically wherever you see wear is somewhere where there's a little bit of friction. So just put a tiny little bit of grease there, tiny little bit over there, tiny bit just right here. I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of grease. That's kind of where that lug will mate up with. So I just want to make sure it's well greased. I'm not going to hit this breech face with anything. It doesn't need anything. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on the metal surfaces just underneath the spring. Just kind of like these two open sides, and then there's a little bit of metal showing there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil there just to reduce any potential friction that might be there, which there's probably not going to be any. I'm going to throw a little bit along the barrel here. Just give that a quick wipe in. And then I'm going to lightly pull it off with the rag. I don't need, I just need a film of oil on there. I don't want a whole bunch because, again, the more oil, the more carbon. So I don't need it. In goes the barrel. Oops. Make sure it's straight going in there. First try. And then take your spring, pop it on, and you need it to go onto that little half moon that's there. That's going to mate up with this circle part here. So push it in, and then I'm going to need to push with a little bit of force just to get it over and onto that ledge. The bottom half is not going to need any oiling. I'm just going to clean some of that accumulated carbon that's off there from shooting, but not really a lot. Maybe if you carry this in your pants and you got belly button lint or something like that, you have to clean it off, but I don't have to worry about that stuff. Slide it on, that's it. I'm just going to check. I am empty. I've got no magazine. I'm just going to check that trigger pull, check the reset, and that's working just fine. Now, while we're at it, why don't we take a look and see what the trigger pull is on this Glock 48. This is a non-modified trigger. There are some trigger packs you can get for this thing because Glock shares parts compatibility with the 48 and some of the 43 and that kind of thing. There's going to be lots of different parts out there. So I'm just pulling straight to the back here. And I'm just about 6 pounds there. Let's try that one more time. I'm just gonna I'm having problems grabbing the trigger low enough to really grab it. It's 5 pounds, just right around 5 pounds there, and yeah, that trigger pull weight really wants to ride a little bit higher, where it's going to have less leverage and be a little bit of a harder pull. So I mentioned the mods, the magazine release, the flashlight. I've also got a couple of different base pads. So with no base pad on this thing, I find that my hand kind of smushes out over top, so I don't really get a lot of that bottom part of the meat of my hand there on the gun. So I've got a couple of different options for that. They're all by the JF Gunworks. They sent me a couple of these magazine base pads to try out. There's a little bit of a thicker one, and that one I find gives me enough to grab onto. If you were in the US, maybe you could get a +1 or something like that. If you want the extra grip, I like the extra grip. And if you want a lot, they also sell a nice big chunky boy there that, boy, makes it easy to insert that thing, and also gives you a little bit more to grip onto as well. And makes for a little bit more weight in kicking the magazine out as well. So who should get one of these Glock 48s? Well, I think that depends on a couple of different things. If you're in a state where you're limited to 10-round magazines, this thing can only hold 10 anyways, so you're not really wasting any space in terms of magazine. It's kind of a shame to get like a big bad magazine and have to have a pin or a block or something like that in it. So it is nice for that kind of a thing. It is slim, so if that's what you're looking for from a handgun, then it is nice and slim from that aspect. It is a little bit disappointing that you can't use Glock 17 or Glock 19 or whatever mags inside of this thing, but that's just because, again, slim grip, you're only going to be able to get so much. What is the width benefit anyways? Well, here's a Glock 34, which is like a long Glock 17 kind of a thing. And if I check the slide width, I get bang on 1 inch. So we've got a 1 inch wide slide on that. Whereas the Glock 48, if I check the width on that one, I get 0.865. So it's a little bit of a thinner slide on it, a little bit of a thinner grip than your standard Glock, which is kind of nice, especially if you've got smaller hands. This is a nicer gun to grip onto. It's easy to access the controls. The trigger is quite easy to access. The magazine release is quite easy to access. I've got the biggest beaver tail on this thing, and it's epoxied on there with a bunch of glitter, aka what is that? Silicon carbide is what I've got on here. Very grippy stuff, but unless you have like big meat hook hands, it's going to be hard to reach that magazine release and a little bit hard to reach that trigger. But for me, I really like having a nice big grip. This makes shooting 9mm very easy. I find the weight of that gun and the just the size of it very easy to control, whereas a smaller gun like this with less grip to hold on to is a little bit snappier shooting 9mm at the range. Of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an extended base pad. Ultimately, for Canadians, well, we can't buy handguns anymore, but the people who did buy Glock 48s, they are nice for people with smaller hands. If you have hands that don't fit regular guns, the Glock 48 is nicer for that. It's very compact. It's nice for that aspect. If you shoot IDPA and you want a gun that like matches that ethos of what IDPA is trying for, this is a better gun than this one for the simulating concealed carry. Who's going to carry this beast around? Yeah, of course, this is going to be a more practical carry pistol, right? Ultimately, I'm pretty happy with this pistol, but I would say that buying a Glock is not as easy of an answer as it was before. I think that newer entrants to the polymer frame striker-fired pistol market are pretty compelling. The MMP is a pretty compelling platform. The newest one that I really like, well, it's not newest, but the CZ-P10. It's got a fantastic trigger. It's a CZ pistol, so it's really made right. I think they're going to be a really big competitor to Glock in the future, just based off the quality of the handgun. But for now, stuff like the Glock 48 is definitely good and definitely a cool option if you're looking for a slim Glock that has a 10-round mag. Thanks for watching.